Alrighty, folks, welcome to the Self Reliance Festival Thursday Live, where we are happy to take any of your questions. Do me a favor if you're on here and let folks know that we are live. I just heard the notification on Tactical's phone in the other room that he got notice that we're live, so that's a good thing. But just give us a like, give us a share, let people know, and if you have any questions or things you want to hear about the festival, go ahead and put them into the live stream. And I see that we've got Prep to Adventure. Welcome, 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 Mr. Landfill, DFW. Good to see you. Rural 2IC. I hope I'm seeing you in person at the event. Karita Lee, Cooperative Waffles. That's kind of a fun name, isn't it, Chuck?
That's a new one. I don't believe I've seen that one yet.
So I'm here with Chuck Peoples. Chuck, tell us who or what is a Chuck Peoples and why would I have you on this?
Well, Chuck Peoples, I am the owner of Homestead Medical. I teach medical classes, medical training, and also sell custom-built medical kits. But my focus is on, I do all the stop the bleed, tactical trauma, cool guy ninja shit. But what do you do after you stop the bleed? And that's kind of my focus, is that prolonged care, austere care, when you can't get to your conventional medical care, whether it be 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months. So that's what a lot of my classes are focused on.
Yeah, why did you decide to go into that focus beyond just stop the bleed? Because I know you do like the live tissue sessions,
I do a live tissue class,
which guys, if you get a chance to take one of those, do it. I know I'm eventually going to.
It's yeah, the live tissue is the only one in the country that I'm aware of that is civilian based, that we invite. Now there's a lot of logistics to go with it, but I went into it because I've taught medical classes, EMS based. I've been a critical care paramedic 29 years. And I saw a kind of a gap, that there was a lot of tactical classes out there, a lot of trauma classes, a lot of stop the bleed, your basic first aid stuff, but there was nothing being taught. What do you do afterwards? And that prolonged care, and also in the environment of, you can't get to conventional medical care. And the stuff that I teach is just skill and knowledge. It's not rocket science. Can I certify you to suture somebody or something like that and go open up Joe Blow's wound care clinic? No, but I can provide you with the information, the skill, and knowledge, and what you do in your own home is your own damn business, and what you need to do. So I just saw a big gap, and it's really taken off. So I'm very fortunate with that. And really, I saw the gap starting at SRF. I started thinking about the first one. I presented the second one, and after that, I decided. I think it was the third one, I decided I was going to start my own business, and just really saw the gap.
Did you start your business because John Willis told you not to?
Yes. It was about the same time Evan was considering it and kind of came up with it. And I basically said, I think I'm going to do this. A lot of people have asked me, hey, do you do classes? Will you come teach this? And he told me, you're just talking about it. And it pissed me off enough that I went and started my own business, and have followed every little thing he has said, you have said, all the SRF network people who have given me advice, Bob Lester, Tim, Tim Cook, just everybody. I mean, I've been so fortunate with that, and very, very lucky to have all of you all as business mentors. And I just listen to what you say and do what you say, and just build my own brand.
Awesome. So do you still work a full-time job?
I do as of now, but I'm steadily working towards not doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm. So you're basically were like, hey, I'll do this as a side hustle. I see a gap I can fill. I basically see an opportunity, a problem I can solve for other people in exchange for money. And it's training beyond the stop the bleed.
Yes.
To how do you take care of somebody, because taking care of somebody's tough. And it's fun. You have a very vast knowledge of things. Like, I was literally talking to Chuck this morning about listeria, guys, because one of my animals got listeria, and stupid me didn't put gloves on when I first intervened, because I didn't know they had it, right? Like, they were just down, and there we were, and I didn't have gloves in my pocket, which might be a the first mistake. But anyway, we'll go on to the second. And then you would do all these interventions on a ruminant, and the animal's saliva got on my hands. So it wasn't a bloody situation. But we got done. I like scrubbed the crap out of my hands because I knew I had touched, whatever was going on. That's just basic practice. And I'm looking at my hand and I'm like, there's a cut on my hand. There's like it's not a big cut, a little cut. So I'm like texting Chuck. So like, can that transmit from the saliva of the animal to my cut? And the answer is unlikely, but it could.
Yeah.
And he was like, I would just flush the heck out of that and put antibiotic cream on it. And if you have any symptoms at all, go immediately to the doctor and get antibiotics, because that's the solution to that problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
But listeria is not something you want to mess around with. Like, if you get a bad case of it, 1 in 5 people die. So just having it is a mild case, but if you have a bad case of it where it has progressed beyond the intestinal system and into your nervous system, that's where it can really hurt you.
Well, and you see things like listeria really spike up as far as cases go, natural disasters, things like that, where there's not electricity, water treatment is not being done, things like that, and people aren't aware of it and how to prevent it and then how to treat it. Because really, if you do get it, you're miserable for about 4 or 5 days, and your body can fight it off a lot of times naturally. But if you have pre-existing illnesses, pregnant, things like that, it's going to call for antibiotics. And it's what antibiotic, what's your dosage, because not one antibiotic is the cure for everything. And that's just some of the knowledge I talk about and try to do in my classes, because I saw that gap. And from having worked disasters, and I've worked different places around the world in true austere environments where there was no modern healthcare, I thought, this can happen in the U.S. I've seen it. I was at Hurricane Katrina. I was at these hurricanes and disasters, and where you see hospital systems shut down. Yeah, it was localized in certain areas, but New Orleans is a big area. And when there's no functioning hospitals, things go sour really, really quick. And that can happen anywhere. And to you, and you're not going to get to modern healthcare.
So I was working in a dispatch role, volunteer role, for an organization that responded to Hurricane Harvey, but we were working in rural areas of Louisiana. So we were going out with food and supplies and, ability to use chainsaws on trees and whatnot in that area. My job was to help people figure out where to go, how to get there, find the need, and connect the people with the supplies to the needs. So it was kind of twofold. I'm listening to where there are roads that were impassable so that we could route them around. And I was also finding needs and linking people with needs. And a lot of what we were delivering in the first few days after that crisis happened was water, just clean, bottled water. And our guy came up on an old folks' home where they had no power. The water was contaminated. They had run out of bottled water on site, didn't have a way to filter it, which is probably a mistake if you're running a senior living center. Or it was taken out. I don't know why they didn't have it. The residents were about to start drinking out of this fountain that was in front of the house, or in front of the facility, which was flood water, which is not something you want to drink untreated.
Right.
And we drove up, or our guys drove up right as they were just considering whether they were going to do that, because a thirsty person will drink salt water rather than even though they know it's going to kill them, they will drink it because that's how strong your thirst drive is when you're really thirsty. And that kept them from doing that. Well, a lot of people don't think about that in a crisis. Like, how am I going to have clean water, a way to clean my hands, a way to keep wounds from getting infected? Sure, you want antibiotics to treat them if it turns into an infection, but how about no infection? And one of the things that impresses me about what you're doing, Chuck, is that you're able to be like, yes, antibiotics are great if you have them, but here's what you can do if you don't have antibiotics to help increase your chance of not getting an infection to begin with. And then you don't have to, have that stuff.
One of the first things that's going to happen when you have a breakdown of modern services is you're going to lose sanitation. And if people don't know how to create sanitation, and as far as clean water, what to do with dirty water, what to do, where you're going to pee, where you're going to poop, all those things. That's where all these diseases like listeria and things like that start popping up, because even your food sanitation of how do you keep your food cool, what's going to be good to eat, what's going to be good to drink, all those things, because listeria is foodborne and waterborne. That's how most humans catch it.
Yeah.
And it's those are the things that I try to go over also. It's prevention, because if you can prevent it, you don't have to treat it. You don't have those issues, because it's not going to be the zombies coming at you with guns and the gunshot wound. It's going to get you. It's, as John said,
dysentery is what's going to get you.
Yes, exactly. And or it's going to be that little cut as you're trying to take care of your land and you're taking care of your animals, and you cut yourself, and then you're digging through the poop or dealing with the animals and doing all that, and you're going to get that infection that turns systemic, and you become septic, and you're going to die. It's how to prevent that, and then also how to treat those early infections, the earliest signs of infections. But like you said, even knowing when you are thirsty, because when you become thirsty, that first sign of thirst, you're already behind the eight ball. You're already dehydrated slightly, but dehydration is what makes you drink that dirty water that you normally wouldn't, because your cognitive thinking skills are now affected, because you're dehydrated. Water is not going through your body. It's not in your bloodstream. It's not in your brain. You're not going to think right.
Right. I love this. So your favorite patient is in the house, and all he has to say is blackberry thorn, because the last time we were at the ER, it was because of a blackberry thorn. This guy can hurt himself on anything.
He is. I now pack my I call it my redneck kit. That's for tactical only when I go to SRF or anything else. So that way, whatever pre-existing injury or injury that occurs, I can treat it.
Right, and there's usually both.
Yes, usually is.
I mean, we are on Self Reliance Festival 7 right now. It's our 7th festival, which is kind of cool to have seen how it's changed from that first one. So many more people. Like, we've struggled. We were talking before this, like getting food vendors there was an issue. Now I just had a meeting with food vendors, and I'm like, okay, so let's make sure everybody can make money, because if you have too many vendors of any one type of thing, ham, radio, food, whatever, it doesn't make sense for to do that. Like, I want the vendors to make money. So yeah. But I think maybe 2 events that Tactical's been at, he hasn't, been sick or with an appendage that didn't work or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's been maybe 2. That's yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say I can count on one hand, because there's now 2 hands required for the total number of events. Okay, Rosie says, so we should all basic first aid to start and then add to the toolbox. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, and you don't have to have any pre-existing classes. You can come into one of my classes and not even know how to spell CPR. And by the time you leave, like last SRF, we did a half-day wound care class, and you could ask them when they walked out, they were using skin staplers. I brought simulators that I had made where they would learn how to lance and drain and disinfect and take care of a cyst. So it's all those things are little things that you're going to have to deal with, because you think, oh, a cyst or a boil won't be a big deal. Yeah, it turns into a big deal, and that can end up killing you if you don't take care of it in a prolonged period.
Yeah, it's amazing what can ramp up. Okay. Gilly Gorilli, great name, says, I don't know whether to feel great that I'm finally getting to Self Reliance Festival or ashamed that I missed 6. I think you should just feel great. It's funny. We do the festival, and we do 2 of them a year. The next one is April 6th and 7th. And there's always people saying, I wish I could come because I can't afford it, or I don't know if it's worth the time investment. And I haven't met anybody who went there and was like, nope, that was a terrible idea. I've met people who said they did not get as much out of it as they should have, because they were kind of hanging back and watching what was going on. And it wasn't until like the last couple hours of the last day that they started interacting with people, because they were shy. And, it's actually a very introvert friendly event, but you also do get out of it what you put into it. So,
yeah, I mean, for me, I wouldn't have this business. I wouldn't be sitting here on this stream if it wasn't for SRF. If it wasn't for John and you and everything, and then all the people who went who encouraged me, hey, why don't you teach classes? You ought to do this, just from where I spoke at it. So, and it's a network. All my friends now, I can say, came from this network. The people I talk to every day. There's people on here now. Rosie is a good friend.
Yeah.
We see each other at other festivals. Chris Watkins, we talk to each other several times a week. Dakota's on here. Great Wolf, a good friend. And all these people that I see are people that I look up to, consider friends, but they're also great resources, that you can go to, because all of them, Chris, you want to know anything about a chainsaw? Ask Chris. Before I bought chainsaws, I literally messaged Chris and I went, I'm about to get these chainsaws. Is this good? Dakota knows dogs, blacksmithing. I mean, he knows so many different things. It's just all these people that you can go to. Rosie keeps me in snacks. But, all of this that you can learn so much from, and you gain from going to SRF, and it's the networking. You meet so many incredible people there. And, that's one of the biggest takeaways that you're going to get from it, is all the people that you meet.
Hey, speaking of your workshop, you've got another one before Self Reliance Festival, and that is Friday from 8:30 to 4.
Yes.
It's the Homestead Medical Responder 1 course. Can you tell us a little bit about what somebody will get out of that?
Yeah. So it's a lot different. The last one I did was on wound care, strictly focusing on wound care. This one is going to kind of an all-encompass. We're going to talk about wound care, but we're also going to talk about simple things. Your most important skill is patient assessment. If you don't know how to assess and look at somebody and go, oh, they're sick or not sick. In other words, and when I say sick, I'm not talking about a cold. I'm talking about, I need to do something right now or they're going to die. Or, okay, wait a minute, I've got a little bit of time. I can use some other skills. I can see what's going on. We're going to talk really thoroughly about that. Little things about vital signs. People can say, oh, I can take a pulse. Well, do you know what that means? Do you know what an irregular pulse is? What's a good pulse? What's a bad pulse? Vital signs, taking a blood pressure, how to take a blood pressure without a stethoscope. And I know how to take a blood pressure without even using a blood pressure cuff. We're going to learn little things, little tricks of stuff like that. We're going to talk about wound care. We're going to talk about some pharmacology. In other words, antibiotics. What antibiotics treat what, when, where, why, how, all those things. We're going to talk about even stuff of broken bones, dislocations, things like that, how to improvise a cast out of, some gauze, ace wrap, and duct tape that you can leave on for 6 weeks and actually heal a fracture. Just so many different things that we'll go over with. And we're also going to talk about some things like emergency dentistry, and then really what you need for a good all-encompassed, homestead medical kit. It's not just the trauma stuff. It's a good all-around thing that'll encompass everything. And we'll also talk about little things like taking care of somebody who's sick. Are they septic? Do they have an infection? Heart attack, stroke, all those things, what you can do until you can get somebody who's more skilled and those things. And even if you do have to take care of somebody for several hours, what you can do to support them and prevent them from getting worse.
Hey, John Willis is in the house.
John,
hi, John.
It's his fault that I'm here.
Well, we're streaming on his channel too, so he probably noticed it.
Yeah.
So, emergency dental. So, you guys who know me, I don't know, a year and a half ago, or two, a year and a half ago or so, I started getting a lot of dental work done. And it's because I started thinking about, like, I was getting my cleanings and everything, but I had some toothaches develop, and it is expensive to deal with your teeth in that situation. And then I started thinking, well, if I don't deal with it right away, and for whatever reason, Novocaine or whatever they use to numb you is in short supply, and then it gets into a crisis mode, somebody's going to have to tie me down, and I'm going to have to feel every thing that they do in the mouth. And it's very easy for people to put off care of the mouth, like you're brushing your teeth and whatnot, but the professional cleaning does more than that.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to spend the $80 or the $180 or whatever it is these days. And that seems to me like, because it's nerve pain, which is extreme, like the worst vulnerability I would want to have, one of the worst ones, going into a crisis situation where I don't have access to a dentist or I don't have access to the numbing agents, because the alternative is, like, tie me down, pull it out, cut the roots, and like, that doesn't sound like an experience I would like to actually go through ever if I can avoid it.
Well, right, and it's little things you can do, and it's kits, and again, it's skill and knowledge that I can show you how to do. Now, I'm no dentist, but I've taken classes on emergent dental care and what to do in areas, because I've worked in areas where there was no dentist. I mean, when I say there's not, and that's a title of a book and a reference that I carry with me everywhere, that I work and go, especially if I work overseas. But it's having those things, and I've been really studying on some herbal things and some tinctures and stuff. And I saw Jason on here a little while ago. I need to get with him with tinctures. I've actually been messaging Amanda back and forth about some tinctures, and I sent her a thing about some homemade, how you can make your own toothpaste, but it's also a toothpaste that helps destroy the bacteria that causes cavities, specifically the certain types of bacteria that gets into your teeth that erodes it and that causes cavities. But it also helps with pre-existing cavities if you have one that hasn't been filled, what to do, and can actually even go into the healing process of it. So it's things like that. And I'm actually, the reason I'm doing that is I'm getting ready to, I'm building out an emergency dental kit that I'm going to be selling, that's going to have this, and it's going to have the stuff like clove oil and things like that, but it's going to have a lot of other references and things that you can do at home also to prepare for that.
Yeah, clove oil is amazing.
Yes, it is for pain, but there's also other pain remedies that you can do and other things you can use that you may not be aware of. And it's also using things like, over the counter medications that you can do, that you can use even in a dental application, that I go over on little things to do as far as grinding up. You can grind up Tylenol and make it into a paste and actually put it on there, and it actually absorbs quicker into the buccal membranes of your mouth, that you can fix. And I saw Gilly Gorilla was talking earlier about, he mentioned a comment about transitioning from a tourniquet. What do you do after you've stopped the bleed? How do you take that tourniquet off? It's one of the things that I actually do go over in class, is tourniquet transition, and what to do with those wounds, and how to do it, because that's not something you think, oh, I'm just going to take it off. No, you can kill somebody real quick by doing that. But all those things are so important because people don't think about it, and it's not taught. They tell you, okay, put the tourniquet on, do this, put this. All right, you're done. And there's no talk about, all right, now what do we do? Where's the help? Because you're just going to assume there's help. Well, look at the state of today's healthcare, and just even the state healthcare is encompassing as far as EMS and your EMS services. You're not getting the ambulances as quickly as you used to, because guess what? There's a crisis, a bigger crisis in EMS right now, because everybody's going, I'm out. You're not paying us enough. I'm not doing this anymore. And it's a severe shortage, even worse than what's in the hospitals. And your actual response times now are twice or three times as long. And as most people do who are in this community, you live in a rural area. Good luck, because you probably have a volunteer service. Or do you even know what type of EMS service do you have? Is it paid? Is it staffed 24 hours? Or is it volunteer? What if the volunteers aren't there? How far is the next one? And if they're busy, how far is the next one? Do you know if you can get a helicopter anywhere around you? Those are just some of the things I go over and talk about. And it's important, and it's real easy to find out, just because, oh, how can I call for a helicopter? You can. There's services. I'll tell you how to do it. Those of you go to, SRF, believe it or not, there's an LZ, a designated LZ close to SRF. So if something happens, somebody needs to go out quick, I can bring in a helicopter quickly.
Yeah, and that's all stuff that we don't necessarily know to think of if we haven't, taken one of these classes. Guys who are wondering how to get the class, selfreliancefestival.com. Click on tickets and scroll down, and you'll see Chuck's logo right there. So yeah, Hogs is saying my community only has a volunteer fire department. Ours is volunteer, but they are staffed 24/7. And I think they do have a couple of paid. So it's mostly volunteer, but the volunteers go and hang out there
Right
on site. So and then of course there's the scanner. So anytime something happens, people who want to jump in on it do. So it's kind of interesting. to see. We had somebody drown here, gosh, a couple months ago. I went over the hill to the marina, and right before we came over the hill, I heard ambulances go by. So we kind of just slowed down and waited, so we knew they'd gone by. And we get down to the marina, and the marina owner's like, I can't leave work, but I want to go out on this so bad because somebody fell out of their boat, and they were trying to, resuscitate them, basically.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's knowing, well, okay, if you know CPR, great, you should. Now, what do you do if you resuscitate them and there's no help coming? How do you provide that supportive care, and do you even know what to do?
Yeah. So after you've stopped breathing and your heart has stopped and you come back, is it like the movies, Chuck? Do you just pop back up and get right back in the fight? Is that what happens?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. No, it doesn't. And there's a lot to do with that, and things to watch out for, and other things, because that heart is still very unstable. It stopped. Just because it started back up doesn't mean it's going to click right back into the correct rhythm it's supposed to be and just be as strong as it was. There's a reason it stopped. And people don't realize traumatic cardiac arrest, that where your heart stops, your survival rate is almost nil. And being able to look, like, there's tough calls that you have to look at is this worth the manpower and resources to even try to resuscitate? Because reality is people die. And sometimes you just have to face that reality. It may be very hard to do with loved ones or ones that you care of, but also knowing those signs of, is it worth it? Or am I going to get everybody even more upset? Because it's a very traumatic thing to have a person literally die in your arms. And knowing when to start, when not to start. There's a lot to it. And that's some of the things I try to go on, is just give you that skill and knowledge of knowing what to do and when to do it.
Yeah. So Chuck's class is not 90% CPR and 10% how to use Narcan. I've learned a lot about wound care because there's a redneck here who needs me to know a lot about wound care. And I learned it first in animal first aid and then applied that to humans because they're very similar. But when I think about what we're taught, like if you have a wound, you put pressure on it, right, to stop the bleeding. That's what we're taught. And then you're supposed to sterilize it, slap a Band-Aid on it, and anything more that needs more than that, straight to the ER. That's what we're taught.
Yeah.
And like, would I rather have somebody with lidocaine and skills stitch something up for me than, Sally next door? Sure.
Well,
but would I like to be able to know that I can confidently stitch somebody up if they need to, and know how to identify if it's needed or not?
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is some wounds, you look at them, they're a big open gapped wound. But you may not want to close it right away because there may be debridement done. You may have to continue cleaning it and flushing it. And you have to be able to recognize that and what to look for, because guess what? Flesh looks much different on the inside than it does on the outside. So how to evaluate and look at that flesh on the inside and the different dermal layers on what to do. Okay, this is clean, it looks good, I can close it now. Or, I think I need to wait maybe a day. Or I'm not going to close this at all. I'm going to do wet to dry dressings, and I'm going to let this close on its own, but you're going to have to take care of that wound every single day. And that's why
sometimes more than once a day.
Yeah, and that's why I say you don't have enough gauze, because you'd be surprised how much gauze you'll go through in a larger wound like that you have to pack every single day or twice a day. Or it's all those things. Or it also may be a wound that I close it, but I'm still going to need to drain it. I may need to put a drain in or something like that. We go over all those things. My more advanced classes, we get more into those advanced procedures. But you can ask anybody who was at SRF last time. They learned how to staple people up. And most people think, oh, you've got to suture. Let me explain. Suturing is done a lot for cosmetic reasons. 90% of the lacerations can be closed up with a staple gun, except for facial things and a few other places and the type of wound. But a lot of it can be done with a skin stapler. And I show you how to do it. I show you how to make improvised sutures where, You never have to even stick a needle in somebody's skin, but you can sew them up. And I show that with duct tape, and you could do it with fishing line or even dental floss. So it's just improvised things. It's some ditch medicine. It's just a mixture of a lot of different things that a lot of people can relate to, and it's easier for.
Yep. That's awesome. Okay, so also before we jumped on, I let Chuck know the latest speaker that we booked, and I'm gonna pull this up here as soon as I find it. So
Right.
who knows who Alan Booker is? You know who he is, right, Chuck?
I do. I actually listened to a podcast he was on probably not even a week ago. I was just scrolling through and found it, and I didn't know about the news you gave me that he was doing. But having him here, I'm very excited to hear.
Yeah, I'm going to his unsafe website. Well, okay, so his website is not built out at all. So we'll go back to that other one. Anyway, Alan is a fantastic permaculturist. I have talked to people who've taken his permaculture design course and they loved it. And you do not hear this about every permaculture design course. A lot of times people are like, wow, I spent a lot of money and learned stuff about stuff I'll never do. So usually their complaint is not that they didn't learn well from the class, but it's that the stuff they learned does not apply to them. So Alan's talking about one of two topics ish. He's going to tell me more this week. It's either going to be the biodynamics of seed saving. So how to, over time through saving seeds, tailor your plant health to where you are, which is a great skill to have. Like, you can grow the food, but do you know how to collect the seeds? And do you know how to stratify the seeds if they need it? And do you know how to increase your germination rates of tomatoes? And do you know that, like, when you choose the seeds from the healthiest plants, that you're passing on that strength to the next plants, and the ones that do best in your environment are going to be subtly different than that same exact plant where you source the seeds from across the country, right? So there's a lot to learn there. And I don't even know how deep he'll go into that. I just know it'll be fantastic because he's very knowledgeable. But then he started talking to me about assessing your kitchen for resilience. And he started talking about like a 5-phase assessment you can do. And he talks about how resilient is your kitchen from like both where you're getting your food from and how you prepare it, to does it feed back into your system, and how it's organized, I believe, is one of them. Because a lot of people who get attracted to our world and then start growing their own food find themselves faced with, now I have to cook with this food and I was not taught this. It is not taught. It's like medicine, right?
Yeah.
We're taught that medicine comes in a little box with some tape and a little teeny piece of gauze. It's called a Band-Aid. And anything beyond that, you go to the doctors. Well, we're taught to cook things out of a box or with a kit, and anything fantastic we go to a restaurant for, where when you learn how to deal with these base ingredients and cook with them, you'll end up with food better than the restaurant, better for you. And you're like bringing that value into your home. You're making your home productive and work for you, as opposed to working for your home.
Yeah,
I'm kind of more excited about the second one, but he may put that one off for a future event. So
I hope he does some on the second one, because when you told me about that, I was very interested in that kitchen part.
Plus, we can have a dude like talking about food instead of a chick, right? Oh,
I noticed some people were talking about vets in the chat, and one of the things I want to reiterate is that a lot of the skills that I teach and actually the equipment that I sell, you can cross it over to your livestock. These skills you can use to your livestock to take care of your animals and things like that. It's all the same. It's a little bit of a different anatomy, but it's a skin stapler is a skin stapler. You can use that on your animals. You can use it on your dogs, all your livestock, and take care of them, and even some of the food and stuff. So yeah, it's all transferable. Back. So I think it's important, even if you're not sure about treating a human, but you've got all your animals that keep you alive, you want to take care of them, take it for that reason also.
Yeah, I think it's a great course. And guys, if you haven't gotten your tickets for Self Reliance Festival, definitely get them. If you have, start telling people about the cool presentations we have this time, because we're really hitting an interesting stride on this event. Where I mean, like with Alan's presentation, we've got like the medical thing handled with Chuck, but we've also got an herbalist coming. We've got natural care for your animals, like all sorts of things are coalescing. In fact, I don't know if you know this, Chuck, but I'm pretty sure there's a 2-hour herbalism course.
Yeah,
Also, it's going to overlap with yours a little bit, I think, but
yeah,
we may talk about adjusting some time so people can do both.
yeah, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend going to that also, because that's where I'm diving into now, is the herbal medicine.
Yeah.
And I'm taking some classes, and I'm trying to learn from different people, like Jason, who was on here earlier. He does all his tinctures. I watch his stuff on TikTok. Amanda, we send stuff to each other back and forth. She sends me a lot of information. So I'm really trying to learn that part of it, because at some point in time you can stock a lot of medicines up, but if they stop making them, and and the world is not what it is now, you're going to have to learn how to make your medicines, and you're going to have to learn how to do these things. And our wonderful government that we have is making it harder and harder and harder to obtain medicines that you can have on hand just in case, not currently using, but stuff to have just in case. And there are other outlets that you can get it, but they're charging a lot of money. And I mean, a lot of money for it. And in my opinion, you're getting ripped off for it. There's other means to do it. And I discussed that in class, how to obtain some things for medicine, medicines and things, and different ways to do so.
Yeah, and if nothing else, like the herbal things support you in situations where, like
Yeah.
one I've used a lot is comfrey, because it can help stimulate your bone growth, and it can help close wounds more quickly. Now, if you have infection in there, do you want to close your wound, Chuck? No.
No, absolutely not. You want to
So
drain it, you want to clean it, and we go over that. I mean, the
yeah,
easiest thing in the world I can teach you is how to close the wound. The most
yeah.
important thing is what you do before that and how to take care of it. That's the most important thing. Closing it, I can teach you how to close a wound in 5 minutes. Honestly, I can teach you how to do a running stitch in 5 minutes. That's easy. It's really the care you apply prior to that, and making sure it's safe to close and it's the right time to close.
Yeah, so here's a comment. Most of the old medicines grow indigenous to areas. Cowboy lettuce, for example, is a wonderful pain reliever. I've
Yeah,
never tried it, but I'll tell you this. I made a tincture with goldenrod this year, or last year. This
yeah.
year is like in the last 12 months. Man, for pain and inflammation, that has been our go-to all year.
Oh,
It's
that's wonderful. And the pain salve that Amanda is making, that they just
yeah.
started selling on John's website. I got some, and let me tell you what, it works. Comfrey salve. I mean, I use Comfrey. I was waiting to use it because I wanted to experiment with it. I got a cut on my arm, and I didn't use anything on it. I just cleaned it, properly disinfected it, and then I used nothing but Comfrey salve on it because I wanted to see if it worked. It worked great. And the thing that I noticed, there's no scar. I mean, the scarring on it, because it was a jagged, little bit of a laceration, and there's no scarring. So I kind of took note of that too. May have just been me. It may be coincidence, but it's all these different things that you can have, and there's naturals for aspirin and painkillers. There's natural things for antibiotics. There's so much out there. Start looking it up now, because it's not something you're going to be able to look to in a few minutes. It's a deep rabbit hole to dive into, and that's where I'm in the middle of right now.
Yeah, it is a deep rabbit hole. I mean, actually, researching listeria today turned into a deep rabbit hole for me.
Yeah,
But I was
yeah.
like,
'Cause well,
okay, I'm not pregnant. This article's not for me. This article's
right,
for
right.
me.
Yeah, and that's what a lot would. If you go and research things, what you'll notice, especially, I call it Dr. Google, because that's what most people do. They go to Dr. Google to try to take care of things themselves. You're going to see worst case scenarios. That's what's going to come up first, and so you've got to have a little bit of disease methodology behind you, and understand the way diseases work and pathophysiology to know what it is, and also know what the limitations are of your body. Your body heals a lot on its own, and taking antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic ruins your natural immune system when you put those in there. So your body can fix itself pretty well depending on what's going on and what you eat and how you take care of yourself.
Thanks for the super sticker, Rural 2IC, whoever you sent that to, because we're streaming on like a million channels, but
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah, that's actually, so I work with a functional medicine specialist. He's actually going to be on my show. I'm not sure exactly when, because I haven't sent him the email with the date and time. But the thing that I've been impressed with in working with a functional medicine specialist is getting to the root cause. And he's
Right.
not opposed to herbal remedies. And he looks at lifestyle adjustments and all of those things. And that's the way medicine should be, right?
Yeah.
Not just like, here's your prescription and go. And, all of this stuff makes me think that if we're going to, like, whether or not there's a societal meltdown, like, take control of your medical, go
Yeah.
find somebody like my functional medicine specialist, whatever that is for you, who can help you figure out how you are healthy, because your body does heal itself.
Yeah.
And having, your microbiome and your gut balanced and your nutrition right and your exercise right makes a huge difference.
And get real blood work done, not what most doctors prescribe, because they're only looking for a few things. And what they're looking for is, oh, here's something that's wrong, I can put you on a prescription for this. Oh, here's something else, I can put you on. The more prescriptions you're on, the more money they make. And guess what? You still have to keep coming back to them. That's how they make money. It's all one big vicious circle. Your goal should be is to get off those medications. And a functional medical specialist, that's exactly what they do. That's what they should be doing.
Yeah, I have a friend who I've seen going through health problems on Facebook, and she's a very scientific thinker, and she's very frustrated. And I've mentioned, like, you might try a functional medicine specialist. The thing is, not all doctors of a certain discipline are made the same. Some functional medicine specialists just want to push you out the door. But when you find one that's willing to analyze you, because she's like, I wish I could find somebody to balance my like nutrition in my blood. And I'm like, literally, that was where we started when I started seeing it. Wasn't, but it was lifestyle. It was some supplements. Some of them I don't need anymore. Like, all of that has worked really great. So yeah, I don't know.
Carter Lee makes she makes a great point right here, and she's going through a tremendous change. I mean, if you want some inspiration, follow her on Facebook. She's unbelievable. But it will. You take care of yourself, you improve your health, your medical problems. A lot of times, they'll go away, or you won't be so reliant on medications and things like that. But a lot of people don't realize there's different doctors out there. There are MDs, but there's also DOs, and DOs are more of the functional medicine, more leaning towards that than what MDs are. And it's all controlled. Let's be honest. And this is always where I get all my haters on, especially my YouTube channel. I always get doctors and everything else going after me, but it's a money making scam, all by big pharma. And a lot of medicine is. I'm not saying not go to doctors. I'm not saying there's not good doctors out there with the best intentions, but a lot of it is controlled by big pharma because they want you on those medications, because that's where they make their money.
And the sad thing is, the one medication leads to the next medication, and you end up like with the 2 you need to live, and then the 10 you need to not have the side effects from the ones that you need to live. And that's, I actually, I'll keep talking about it. Everybody's already heard me, but if you're hearing me for the first time, there's a book called Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia. And it's just about adding what he calls lifespan, which is quality of life to your years. So it's not necessarily, the question is, yes, how do I live longer? But how do I live better longer?
Right.
And he, like, it is worth a read, whether you agree with every word he says or not. Like, it's not about agreeing, but that is one that has made me evaluate how I exercise a lot differently. Like, it's like, I know moving the body is good and that's fine, but he breaks down exercise into different kinds of exercise and how to dial that in for yourself. And I was like, man, I'm really glad I read this book now and not 20 years from now.
Well, and
So,
it's also as you get older, as you age, what your body does, how you exercise, what you did at 20 and 25, you're not going to be able to do where I'm at 53. Your body just can't handle it. You could go in and hit the gym, and yeah, there's 53-year-olds that are lifting massive amount of weights and stuff. See how they are in 5 years. One injury can wipe them out, completely. So you've got to understand the limitations of your own body, but that also goes with diet of what you eat. What somebody's diet where they might be on a carnivore diet and may not be the best option for you. I mean, I've had extensive talks with Dr. Berry, who highly, 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 highly recommend. And is he going to be at this one?
we'll see. If he is,
Uh,
we will make space for him. He is the one who recommended this book to me, though.
yeah,
He's the reason I read the book.
Yeah, I had such a great conversation with him several times, and he's just so knowledgeable. But read his books, listen to his podcast, because he is part of this community. And the things that he's told me, he's not your normal doctor. That's the thing. You don't find doctors like him because he wants you to get better. He doesn't want to keep you on medicines. He wants you off medicines. He wants diabetics off insulin, off the oral medications to be better and live healthier.
Imagine like the medical supply system gets disrupted and you don't need insulin.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't care. Right? If you do need insulin, that's a problem.
Yeah. And, if you talk to a lot of people in the medical industry now, they're disgusted with it. And a lot of people are leaving, including doctors, because they just don't want to play the game anymore that they're forced to.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Okay, well, it's about time to wrap up, guys. I'm really thankful that you made time to be on today, Chuck. Every Thursday at 7, we're bringing some people on. I think next week I'm going to send an email out to our vendors and see who wants to hop on and just talk about what they'll be doing on Vendor Row. But guys in the live chat, if you have any questions, you throw them in now or forever hold your peace till next week.
Yeah. Yeah. And I highly, if you're on the fence about coming, just come, buy the ticket, come to it. You're going, it'll change your life. It changed mine. There's several people in this chat right now that'll tell you the exact same thing. It'll make you a better person. It'll make you a stronger person. And if you've ever thought about starting a business, this is the place to come to, because you'll get nothing but inspiration to do so.
Yep. Yeah. I can't wait to see everybody. I'm getting really excited. So we had the food vendor talk today. That always, I'm like, oh, good. Okay. We got breakfast, lunch, and dinner covered. So we're good to go. All right. Well, we'll see you next week. And thank you.